blaming him.
Understanding the history of Canada's residential schools is a work in progress. Those who document the system had hoped to one day get access to a treasure trove of documents, more than 38,000 accounts of abuse from residential school survivors who told their stories when they claimed compensation from Ottawa. Today, though, the Supreme Court of Canada ruled those records can only be set aside and archived with the express consent of individual survivors. Without that, the court says, they must be destroyed.
What we have lost today is we have lost the entirety of the record.
Those who argue to preserve all the documents fear Canada is about to lose a piece of its history.
We will never truly understand the full extent of what horrors were inflicted upon students in those schools.
The court says when survivors told their stories, they were always assured they would be kept private. The high premium placed on confidentiality becomes apparent when one considers the nature of the information disclosed during this process, the court wrote in its verdict.
These are personal stories. These are painful stories.
Phil Fontaine is a former national chief of the Assembly of First Nations and a residential school survivor. He's been open about the abuse he and others suffered and thinks the court has made the right decision.
This is about consent and the ownership of these stories. These stories belong to individual survivors, no one else.
These records do contain highly sensitive information, allegations of abuse by teachers and sometimes other students. Some argued any disclosure of these sorts of details could be painful.
One can readily imagine that if even the fear that this information could come out within the community would be just devastating.
The federal government says it's disappointed with the ruling, but documents won't be destroyed just yet. The court says they should be held for 15 years to give survivors a chance to come forward and ask that their file be preserved. If that consent doesn't come, or if a person is not alive to give it, the records will be deleted. The stories lost forever. Tom Perry, CBC News, Ottawa.